Okay, I realized yesterday that not everybody understood what I meant when I said collect words for your cheat sheet. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of how you're going to collect words. You can stay on page 33 if you want to. I'm just going to pop over to 5.2a because if we go to, say, here, anytime we have put a star beside a word, so if you're flipping through your book and you see a star beside a word, that means you should be collecting it and adding it to your list. Now, where are you going to write this list? You can write it on a piece of paper. You can write it on the back cover of your book, on the inside cover of your book, anywhere that you want to. Eventually, you will be taking that list and diagrams and labeled diagrams and like pictures, whatever you want to draw or write, and you're going to put it on a piece of paper. How big is that piece of paper? It's going to be this big. Or should you choose, if you don't want to have it be that big, you can have two pieces of paper which are this side. You can use both sides. It ends up being the same size. Okay? Now, if you are a large writer and you think, that doesn't sound fair because there's all these people who are small writers, I think I would like some more paper. Just ask me, I can get you more paper. It's not a big deal, right? It's just, I don't want to give like a big, huge sheet of paper to someone who writes like a millimeter size writing and like writes an entire textbook on here. You know what I mean? Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to collect all these starred things. Now, what if you have been away on a particular day and you're like, well, I didn't get to check off all the stars. Number one, you can check with a friend. Number two, you can also go look on Teams. And not in AP Chemistry, because that's not what we want. But if we go to Science 9, if I make that just a little bit bigger so you can maybe see it a little bit better, up at the top, there's something that says Class Notebook. Don't do that. You want to go to Channels, the main channels. I don't do anything up here, okay? That's all just useless, but they won't let me hide it, so whatever. Down in Class Notes, we're going to click on that. Okay, and it says, oh, look, a link to our class notes. And we click on that, and sometimes this takes a little while. Look at that. And I'm going to click on Science 9, 2023-2024, and I'm going to look and I'm going to say, we are block 4 and we are studying DNA. So I'm going to click on DNA 4. Oh, there's my table of contents. If I want to go to 5.2a to see what those stars are, I can click on that. And it pops up with all the notes we've taken in class. Okay? So you'll be able to see where all those stars are. If you're like, I don't trust you, Ms. Spence, I'm also going to check out block 3. You can click on block 3, and their notes are here as well. There might be slightly different things from place to place, but it doesn't really matter which one you click on. I will move the one that I haven't been writing on out of the way tonight so that you don't get confused by it. There's one I haven't been writing on. Anyway, so that's where you can go for that. And the other thing is some of the homework that you've been doing has been from 5.1. And what I would like you to notice is right on the very first page of this book, there is a purple box that says words to know. Do you think those are good words to know? Yes. There are actually a couple of them on here that I'm going to have you cross out. Okay, so if you want to just for a moment turn to page 1 in your book. We are going to cross out eukaryotic cell. And we are going to cross out prokaryote. All the rest of them are fair game. So cell membrane, cell wall, cytoplasm. The ones with diamonds, of course, you don't need to know. Okay, your choice. Nucleus, nucleolus. While we're here, because people always tend to forget what the nucleolus is for, tell your partner what you think the nucleolus does. The nucleolus makes something. What does it make? Ribosomes. Okay, so this is page 1, if you want to write that down. And if you had to, yes?
So the nucleolus makes ribosomes in the nucleus?
Yes.
But how does the ribosomes
get out into the cytoplasm? I would like you to take a guess. They go out through the nuclear pores. Yes, they do.
Ribosomes are pretty small.
They're pretty small. Yeah. Okay. At least that's my understanding. My cell biology is literally 30 years old, so my details might, if you go to university and you're like, my Science 9 teacher told me that the ribosomes go out through the nuclear pores, and it turns out that they actually sort of assemble outside of the nucleus, like completely. That might be what happens. I just don't have the details right in my brain anymore. Okay. All right, so we've got the nucleolus, and if you had to label the nucleolus, here's a cell. Which part is the nucleolus? That black part, that spot within the nucleus. So we have the cell, the nucleus, and then the nucleolus. Okay. So on page 1, there's some vocab words. If I go to 5.1b, now I'm on page 5, and I look and I say, oh my gosh, there are some other vocabulary words. So those should also be ones that I'm putting on my list for my cheat sheet. Okay? So if you're like, where do I find them? Page 1, page 5, and all the starred words that we're doing. So flip through your book, find all the starred words that we've put in. Okay? Alrighty, today we're going to finish off DNA in depth, and we are on page 33. So I'll give you a minute to get back to page 33. Yes.
The star ones are ones so like the ones plus the ones you add.
Yeah. So the starred ones, the ones in the little boxes in the reading, and then all the starred ones that we learn along the way. Yeah. Some of them may be the same, some of them may be different. Yeah. Okay. So we have here 2 strands of DNA. They're going to make a ladder. Now, when you have a ladder, do you guys know which part of the ladder is called the rungs? Is it the up-down part or the side-to-side part that are the rungs of the ladder? The side-to-side part. These right here, these are the rungs of the ladder. What part of DNA makes up the rungs of the DNA ladder? Mm-hmm. The bases. And while we're here, if you can remember, tell your partner how many bases there are and what they are called. How many bases? 4. And what are the letters? T, A, C, G. The order doesn't matter, okay? Thymine, adenine, cytosine, and guanine. All right, so the bases make up the rungs. Now, one thing I'd like you to notice here, this is only if you want to be thinking about it in an enriched fashion. You'll notice there's a little, whatsy-doey down here, a little black diamond. I want you to take note of the backbone. What kind of backbone is that? It's the sugar phosphate backbone. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at it here, and I would like you to look at it on the other strand. And I'd like you to notice what's different about them. See if you can tell what's different about the 2 strands of the DNA that are going to match up together. They're in opposite directions, yes? So this one goes that way, and this one goes that way. And in biology, we have a special name for that. If I have 2 things that run side by side and never touch, what do we call that? Parallel. Now, if I took one of those things and I turned it upside down, biologists are going to call that anti-parallel. Parallel, anti-parallel. Parallel, anti-parallel. Show me parallel. Show me anti-parallel.
No.
It's hard, isn't it? It's a little bit tricky. Yes. Okay. So if you are interested, the fact that one of the strands is upside down in relation to the other, you could say that those are anti-parallel. However, that is not a required word, so you don't have to know it. Okay? Now, here are our 2 strands, and now they're actually stuck together. What do we have in the middle here? In between the 2 bases. Those are bonds. They are called hydrogen bonds. Okay, those are called hydrogen bonds, and that is a vocab word. Now, hydrogen bonds are the bonds that hold the two strands of DNA together. And for most of you, that's all you need to know. They are the bonds that attach the, ooh, I got a big long word for you here. Hydrogen bonds are the bonds that attach the something or other bases to each other. Poor Baran. Yeah? Complementary. I remember in grade 4, Baran, I would actually sit there and I had a ruler and I would prop my hand up with the ruler. Oh, dear me. Okay, complementary. Bases to each other. Now, do you think complementary is a vocab word? Yes, it is. Complementary. See if you can describe to your partner what it means to be complementary. If things are complementary, they match up perfectly.
Yes, it makes sense. Tell me why this is.
So they match up perfectly. Now, think about the word complementary. It's got the same root as complete. Yes, complete. So it's kind of like they complete each other, yes? One of them is like maybe circle shaped. It matches up with a circle that slots in. One of them is pointy shaped and it matches up with a pointy thing. Yes? Those two are complementary because they match up perfectly.
No, I'm saying it's about you're so bad. I never.
Now, hydrogen bonds, I want to mention something about hydrogen bonds that is enriched. So if you just want to chill for a minute and relax, you can do that. But I'm going to say that hydrogen bonds they are the Goldilocks of bonds. And I apologize if this is not part of your cultural background and you've never heard of Goldilocks. Okay, but there's this little story about Goldilocks and the three bears, and Goldilocks is this little girl, and she goes into the house that belongs to these three bears, and the three bears are out for their morning stroll, but they've left their breakfast on the table, and some oatmeal, and she goes to the first bowl, and what does Goldilocks say? She says, "This oatmeal is too hot." Oh, it's porridge. She calls it porridge. I'm like, it's not oatmeal, it's porridge. And then she takes the next bowl and she says, "This porridge is too cold." And then finally she takes the last one and she says, "This porridge is just right." Can you guys not make a big scene while you're leaving?
Skiing, acting like they're airlines. Yeah, they're acting like they're airlines. Even just like the extending. So you're the
Alrighty. So hydrogen bonds are like the Goldilocks of bonds. And in this case, they're not too strong. They're not too weak. They are just right. Okay? Not too strong. Not too weak. They are just the right strength. What that means is that in holding those two strands together, if I had a covalent bond, covalent bonds are really strong. Yes? Can you imagine? Hold your hands together really tightly and try pulling apart. Right? If you're holding on tightly, it's difficult. Yes? That's like a covalent bond. So if you needed to open up those two strands, you wouldn't be able to do it because the covalent bond would be too strong. Okay? Now, you also don't want to have like just hardly anything because that would be too weak and then it would fall apart. Hydrogen bonds are not too strong. They're not too weak. So it's as though you're holding on with like the tips of your fingers, right? You can pull on that and it's got some strength, but if you pull hard enough, and if you're just doing it with the tips of your fingers, eventually the friction will, right? So they hold it strongly enough, but they will come apart because sometimes you need to separate that so you can read the bases and make a copy, like an RNA copy of the DNA. If you can't open it up, you can't make an RNA copy, right? It has to open up to make an RNA copy. So strong enough to hold them together, but weak enough to open up to make a copy when needed. Okay, so that is right there. Tell your partner who are the complementary base pairs.
No, I'm gonna write it. Brian.
The complementary bases are A and T and G and C. Apples go in the tree, cars go in the garage. Yes. What does the word complementary mean? Yes. All right, so we got a little picture here. Apples go in the tree, car goes in the garage. That's going to help you remember, hopefully. I don't know, my last class, they got a little carried away. They're like, the car goes in the tree, and then the apple is in the garage, and then the apple was in the, I don't know, they got really confused. They got really complicated. They were just being very silly. It was kind of funny, though.
Yeah, it was you.
Yeah, it was over there. It was like Juan and Borna and who's the other one there? Jonah. Yeah, they were kind of like, they were riffing on that. Yeah. Okay. I would like you to tell your partner what you think the word genetic code means, because that is a vocab word right there. Genetic code. What is the genetic code?
It's the code that tells the ribosome how to make amino acid, how to make a blood protein, so like they You said I. What? I don't get it.
Yes.
Not part of the list. I
Yes.
Question.
Yes.
So you have complementary strand, complementary bases, first of all.
Yeah.
Are those all?
Well, I mean, they're all related to one another. Yes. So if you know what complementary means, then you know what complementary bases are. Yes. And then if we have a complementary strand, it means it all matches up perfectly. You could just do complementary and then kind of be like strands, bases. Some people, when they're doing like a vocab thing like this, they like to do kind of a mind map, you know, and you might just have the word complementary and then you'd have like little things branching out from it. Some people like to alphabetize everything. That's a different way of doing it. Whatever works best for your brain, right? And if you do it one way and you don't like it, you can always do it a second way if you want to. Okay? Yeah. I've always got more paper if you change your mind as to how you want to do things. Okay? Yes. Oh, yes. Double side. Yes. Okay? And like I said, if you're finding that those 2 pages are not enough because your writing's rather large, that's okay. Just ask me for more paper. No big deal. What is our genetic code? Yes.
It's like the DNA order.
It's just the order of the bases. Yeah. The order of the bases. Literally, if I was to read the DNA code, the genetic code up here, I would say A, G, T, G, C, T, T, A, C. That is the genetic code for that small section of DNA. Okay? Literally, it's just the letters that you read across. Okay? Now, we're going to be talking tomorrow about genes. So I'm not going to get too wound up about it right now, but gene will be a vocab word. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to have big focus on genes, but it is a particular sequence of DNA that codes for one specific protein. So maybe what we have is, let's say that this is our DNA here, except that the DNA doesn't just stop. The DNA actually carries on for a long, long way in either direction. Does that make sense? Okay. And this part right here might be the code for one specific protein. So out of all of that DNA, just this one tiny little section is the code for one specific protein. And that section is called a gene. And when the RNA makes a partial copy, it's making a partial copy of that one gene. Okay, so that partial copy is a copy of a gene. mRNA is a copy of one gene. Now, this is going to be the shortest protein in the history of the Earth because we read this code how many letters at a time? 1, 2, 3 letters at a time. So how many amino acids will we have in our protein chain? Only 3. So that's a really short amino acid chain, yes? When the amino acids get together, they are going to bond to each other. Is amino acid a vocab word? Yes. Is good? Okay, so we're going to go to our next page. And we're actually going to skip this little bit at the top. We'll come back to it later. We're going to go down to this part here. Here is the DNA sequence. This is the gene. That is the gene. Now, is that the entire DNA molecule? Okay, you need to tell me, number 1, how many letters do we read at a time? 3. And what do we call the sequence of letters? The order of the letters. It is a gene, and the sequence of all the letters, including all the genes, is called the genetic something. The genetic code. Yes, you may go to the washroom. Okay. Now, yes. Oh, yeah. So we read them in series of 3. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups of 3. Yes.
Is the gene and the genetic code the same thing?
Yes. Now, normally when we talk about the genetic code, we're talking about like maybe more of the DNA. So the genetic code is more of a umbrella term for all kinds of things. It could mean the DNA sequence of bases. It could mean the RNA sequence of bases. It could be for a single gene, or it could be for several genes. Okay, it's sort of that umbrella term that just means the sequence of bases that we're looking at this moment. Okay, we're going to learn the word later. Our entire genetic code, which is all contained in every single cell of your body, is called the genome. The genome. Okay, so like a biome is like where everything lives. Our genome is where all our information lives. Yeah. All right, so we read them in triplet codes and we get an amino acid. So guess what? Oh, look at this. We have an amino acid. 1 amino acid. Then we have a bunch of amino acids stuck together. Lots of amino acids in a chain. Does this remind you of anything? We have one thing, and then we take a whole bunch of those similar things and we string them all together in a chain and we stick them all together. The amino acid is a monomer. And we stick them all together in a chain. We get a protein, which is a polymer. There's one extra word that if you choose to learn it, you can learn it in the middle. Okay, and that is polypeptide. Polypeptide just means the string of amino acids that hasn't folded up yet into its perfect protein shape. Okay, so when you first make the chain and it hasn't folded up, that's called a polypeptide. But that is an optional word. You don't need to know it. Okay, you can just call it a protein. Now I did, at the bottom of the page here, want to make a little chart. And we're going to have monomer on one side. And we're going to have polymer on the other side. And if, yes. Yeah. Yes, however, it can also be like you've got the polymer here and you've got the polymer here and the two stick together, right? Like the DNA, so the whole DNA is a polymer.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah?
lots of amino acids is a polymer.
Yes. So wait, okay. If my monomer, if my single unit is an amino acid, then if I stick them together in a chain, I get a polymer. And that particular type of polymer is called a protein.
Oh.
Yeah, does that make sense? Now, if my polymer is not a protein, if my polymer is DNA instead, what is the single unit that all get stuck together to make DNA? Do you remember what those are called? Yeah. Those are nucleotides, yes. Okay, so we can have different kinds of monomers make different kinds of polymers. Now, while we're talking about nucleotides, right, and every single one of these words is a vocab word, of course, okay? While we're talking about nucleotides, do you think you can remember how to draw one? See if you can draw one. And if you're stuck on where to start, you're going to start by drawing a pentagon, which means draw the roof of the house. Make the walls of the house tilt slightly inward. And then connect the bottom. And that's going to be, is that what part of the nucleotide is that? Arna, what part of the nucleotide is the pentagon? I'm going to give you a choice. It's either the phosphate, the sugar, or the base. It's the sugar, okay? So that is our sugar. And what shape do we make the phosphate? It's just a circle, and where do we attach it? On the top, that's good. Okay, so we got our phosphate here. Yes, thank you. You may go to the washroom. Phosphate, sugar, and then we got our rectangle here, which is the base. Yeah. The nucleotide is a monomer of DNA. So a pearl is a monomer of a pearl necklace. A nucleotide is a monomer of DNA. An amino acid is a monomer of protein. Now, let's say you had some Cheerios and a piece of thread, and you started putting Cheerios on there, and you were making, like, I don't know, a garland for your Christmas tree, because you've got a lot of time on your hands. I don't know. Okay? The garland for the Christmas tree would be the polymer, because it's a bunch of the little Cheerios strung together. The Cheerio would be the monomer. So depending on what particle you use as the monomer, you will get a different type of polymer. Does that make sense? Yeah? So amino acids will make a protein, nucleotides will make DNA. Yeah? All right. Now, the important thing about proteins, do you guys remember what's super important about proteins? It is their shape. So when I say you need to know the word proteins, does that mean you just are like, protein, it's a thing? Or do you know that an important thing about proteins is their shape? Why is their shape important? Tell your partner, why is the shape important?
Yeah.
Yes.
Their shape is, their function is determined by the shape.
The function is determined by the shape. If you don't like the word function, you can just say its job is determined by the shape. If you have a nail, you do not want a screwdriver-shaped tool. You want a hammer-shaped tool. Yes? So the shape is important. It determines the function. Now, you're going to be responsible for knowing 3 main jobs of proteins. To be honest with you, proteins have thousands and millions of different jobs, okay? But these are 3 main roles of proteins in the body. And the first one is enzymes, vocab word. Second one is hormones, vocab word. And the third one is structural proteins, vocab word. So those are our 3 main jobs of proteins. We're also going to learn the word catalyst, because if you don't know what a catalyst is, you don't know what an enzyme is. Does anyone remember what catalysts do? Yes. I understand that, but often people don't read. They speed up chemical reactions. Okay, so you can have a reaction that's just sitting there doing nothing, and you add a catalyst, and all of a sudden it goes super fast. Now, enzymes are the catalysts of your body, okay? They are the catalysts inside living things. Catalysts of the body. So if you remember me saying last day, if I ate a hamburger and it just sat in my stomach and there were no enzymes, I could be waiting millennia, thousands of years, for that hamburger to fall apart to a point where I could use the nutrients from it. I do not want to wait 1,000 years to digest my hamburger. So I have enzymes that make that process much faster, that speed it up. Okay, and those enzymes are made of proteins. Hormones are basically your body's signals, okay? They're signals sent around in your body, chemical signals. And one organ or gland excretes or puts out those little chemical signals, and they go through your bloodstream and travel everywhere in your body and maybe make something happen in a different organ or a different cell or something like that. I hope that structural proteins makes just sort of logical sense. What do structural proteins do? They help with the structure, yeah? So they're going to be like your hair is made of protein. Your nails are made of protein. Your muscles are made of protein. Your muscle cells are mostly made of protein. Okay, so they make up a lot of the structure. Okay? Now, the other ones that you don't need to know as much about, but if you're interested, you can. We have pigments. Do you guys know what a pigment is? It's like a color. Okay, so if your eyes are brown, they have a brown pigment. If your eyes are blue, they have a blue pigment. If they're green, they have a green pigment. If they're hazel, you've got a couple of different kinds of pigments. Okay? Transport proteins move things around your body or move things around the cell. Okay? One very famous transport protein is called hemoglobin. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah.
I've heard it.
You've heard of it. Yeah. It's actually part of your red blood cells. And it's the part that carries oxygen. You don't need to know this, okay? Yeah. Can you check what? Oh, yeah.
Like so much.
Okay, if we can finish this when you get back, it'll just take 2 minutes to finish it. You guys can go and check on the snow. Do you want to go check on the snow now? Okay, go check on the snow. Speak quiet about it. Don't go to the hallway. Don't get me in trouble.
It's definitely smelling.
I'm supposed to drive down the hill from Coquitlam to Port Moody tonight and then drive back up. I'm thinking maybe I will just not go. I'll see what it looks like for that.
It's sliding down.
Yeah.
I don't know what home. I think it's not. Yeah. That's it's gonna melt tomorrow.
We melt tomorrow? Okay. I was just telling Zach I'm supposed to go down the hill from Coquitlam to Port Moody tonight and then back up. And I'm like, oh,
I'm like, I'm feeling
I'll probably go down there. So it'll probably be clear because they're pretty good at primary. There's thermal drive, there's Gainsborough, and
I'm gonna run to the house.
they all go down.
No, well,
yeah.
Thermal drive is not clear, but it is a brutal hill.
I have been reading Jack every. You know. Yeah.
Oh my god, so it's gonna slow right now.
Wheelchair.
I don't know.
Guess what that happens to you?
And
0 degrees at 8 a.m. Mine
is like.
I don't have to.
Yeah, that. Minus 4 times minus 4 longer.
I don't Oh wait, never mind.
How's it looking?
Yeah.
White.
And then it gets sunny at 9 a.m.
Last
So
year,
mine's
I left, I don't know where I left, like, really this much snow on the ground. Right? Yeah, I love seeing.
It's going from now to 8 a.m. And Dr.
Yeah.
Sunny, not so
Are you staying after school?
Yeah.
Are you? I wanted to go get my. I'm not understand like or something like that.
How did
I thought it was better.
Yeah, do it again. I want to get down at 8 a.m. And it's gonna go from now until 8 a.m. Oh, it's not that. Oh wait, no, that's good. I'm still getting down until 8 p.m. I don't need to go back. I might see yeah, I know. I need to take a bus or I'm gonna walk back.
Oh, it's gonna be so bad.
They never call snow days, especially because it's all going to melt tomorrow.
Well, not. I think a little bit all at school.
When is it going to melt?
Around 2 p.m.
Oh.
No, tomorrow. 8 a.m. tomorrow is when it's
still
gonna stop
snowing.
snowing.
Stop snowing. Okay.
At 8 a.m. tomorrow, and it's gonna be negative 14 at 8 a.m.
Wow. How many centimeters are we getting by then?
Bro, I might not be able to.
I can't look up anything because my phone's updating.
What?
It's updating.
No,
I might not make it up because I have to take a bus up the mountain.
Oh, you'll make it up the mountain. You will.
It was
You'll be
close.
fine.
It was close last year.
Yeah.
I got the second last bus.
You can walk up the mountain.
have to go take an hour.
Yeah. I went to SFU when I was a student,
You walked up?
and I didn't walk up. I did bike up one summer,
Yeah.
which was okay. It was like I just had to put it in lowest gear and go really
Yeah.
slow.
You're taking the bus today?
But I did have to walk down one year because of the snow.
Yeah.
They closed all the buses, and we were doing a lab exam,
Yeah.
and they were like, "You can't leave." They're like, the announcements came on, the university's closing. Better go get your bus now. And then they're like, "You can't leave. You're writing your lab exam." And I'm like, "Okay." So a whole bunch of us had to like kind of walk down the hill, but we all did it together, so it was fine.
us. But like, it'd take a while to walk down the hill.
Yeah,
Show us
and then
pictures.
at one point, somebody came driving down the hill in a little Volkswagen Beetle. I don't know if you're familiar with the Volkswagen Beetle. It used to be a very, very common car back in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s because they lasted forever.
Yeah.
But they were different in that they were rear wheel drive, but the engine was in the back. So they were heavy on the back, so they could get anywhere in the snow. A rear wheel drive with the engine in the back makes for a very good traction.
The hood's in the front.
The hood's in the front, so you can put things in the front. There's not much room. It's a small car.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And there used to be a whole bunch of them. They were shaped like this, and they were called a bug. The Volkswagen Beetle, it was called a bug. And so you would punch buggy. So when you saw one, that's where that came from. Yeah.
That's where always punches me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. All right, friends. I think we've sort of covered this. Your homework is pages 37, 38, and 39. Oh, sorry. No, 38, 39, 40. Hold on. Is that right? Yeah, 38, 39, 40. 38 to 40. There we go.
Bro, kudos is ridiculous. I have 100 gigabytes.
So if you're finished, you have free time.
Yeah.
Look.